Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to another When Sci-Fi TV Was Great. In this episode, we're exploring the immortal appeal of Highlander the series, seasons 3 and 4.
Previously on Highlander.
Highlander was a historical fantasy action-adventure series based on the 1986 movie of the same name. The show ran for 6 seasons, consisting of 119 episodes from 1992 to 1997, and spawned 2 spin-offs and 2 movies of, varying quality. Highlander Season 3 was a year of changes for the show, or rather, retcons. In the opening episode, The Samurai, the story of the origin of Duncan's iconic dragon head katana changed significantly from what we heard in the Season 1 episode, Freefall.
If this sword was made by the greatest craftsman who ever lived, how come you're not using it?
The sword and I have survived for 400 years. It was given to me by another immortal, a clansman.
The retcon replacing that story comes in Season 3, Episode 1, The Samurai, where viewers learn that in 1778, MacLeod shipwrecked off the Japanese coast and was taken in by Hideo Koto, a samurai played by Robert Ito. Duncan soon learns that Koto-san's friendship comes with a price, as Hideo's feudal lord has called for the death of old Gaijin, and MacLeod's very presence has sealed the samurai's doom.
I will be honored to be your second.
When it is over, the sword is yours.
The next big retcon comes in the very next episode, Line of Fire, and involves the death of Duncan's lover, Little Deer, and the slaughter of her tribe. In the pilot episode, The Gathering, the killing of Little Deer's Sioux tribe is shown to be the work of another nomadic tribe, as evidenced by the arrows sticking out of the victims, and not to mention the egregious tomahawk wounds throughout. In Line of Fire, the writers retcon the deaths to be the work of the immortal tracker named Kern, who helped the army clear out the Sioux in the 1870s Pacific Northwest.
Got a present for you, squaw man. Which one do you think is her?
The B story of this episode also clarifies some immortal lore. Now, if you're a fan of Highlander, you already know that they can't have children. Well, in this episode, we learn, sadly for Richie, that not even pre-first death immortals can have kids. The 1653 Algiers flashback from Finale gives us the last retcon of Season 3, with MacLeod meeting Xavier St. Cloud for the first time.
Who is that camel dung?
Xavier St. Cloud.
Christian name for a Moor?
There has been many things.
Again, years before he would meet him for the first time in 1917.
Maybe you should have told him.
Told him what exactly? That I met Xavier in 1917 and he was wearing a gas mask, but I'm not quite sure.
Now, while Season 2 brought viewers great characters like Charlie and Joe, Season 3 introduced us to a new love interest for MacLeod, played by Lisa Howard, and the world's oldest immortal and soon-to-be fan-favorite character, played by Peter Wingfield. Dr. Ann Lindsay was the first woman Duncan allowed himself to care about after losing Tessa, and although she would only appear in 14 episodes over Seasons 3 and 4, Ann would go on to have quite an influence on MacLeod. He'd even go on to buy and restore a house for her. But let's face it, this character was not very well liked by the Highlander fandom at the time, especially amongst the female contingent, partly because I think they loved Tessa, and nobody was going to be good enough for MacLeod after her. Personally, I liked Anne just fine. She was a smart, attractive woman who was well-written, and because it was the 1990s, she was allowed to look sexy from time to time. But what do y'all think? Did you like Anne, or was she just another distraction from the action, fun, and adventure that was Highlander? Let me know down in the comment section below. Season 3 also introduces viewers to the character of Methos, who at 5,000 years old is the world's oldest immortal. So according to series lore, Methos was born in ancient Mesopotamia, and through his life he was witness to a significant number of historical events, including the rise and fall of numerous civilizations. complex individual, certainly the most interesting of all the immortals, with his unique combination of wisdom, wit, and fighting skills, make him a formidable opponent. Yet he somewhat self-depreciatingly refers to himself as just a guy. Throughout the series, Methos is portrayed as both wise and cynical.
A little young to be so cynical, aren't you?
If you say so.
I just did.
But regularly refers to himself as pragmatic more than anything else, often rigging the game in his favor if it doesn't look like he'll be on the winning side of a conflict or situation.
Mr. Callis, you're under arrest for the murder of Donald Salter. That's the man, Inspector.
Because I didn't know if you could beat him. It's a chance I couldn't take.
As the character states in the series, he survived this long knowing when not to fight. I always enjoyed the character for his wit and his charm, and because of how different he was from Duncan, where MacLeod lived by his very specific code of honor with a willingness to fight for just causes. Methos' morality often shifted depending on the situation. His pragmatic, cynical approach to survival often clashes with Duncan, giving the characters a more dynamic tone to their friendship. When Adrian and Peter are on the screen together, you can't help but pay attention because you never know what might happen. Methos would go on to become a phenomenally popular character following his appearances in Season 3. Fans on the message boards at the time begging the powers that be for a Methos spin-off series of some kind, maybe a team-up series with Joe Dawson. Unfortunately, the closest we'd ever get to that would be in a single Season 6 episode called Indiscretions. The fan letters and message board chatter would continue all the way up until 2001, when all the noise was finally answered with a series called The Methos Chronicles. A 10-minute long web-based flash animation series, that is. This series featured Peter Wingfield voicing the character and told the story of Methos' reunion with an Egyptian pharaoh, the immortal De Jure. The story ended on a cliffhanger and to this day hasn't seen an official conclusion. Seasons 3 and 4 also give fans a deeper dive into Joe Dawson. After Season 2, the decision was made to get Joe out of that bookstore. Since Jim Burns is a talented singer and blues performer, the powers that be gave Joe his own blues bar to manage in the show. The writers open up about Dawson's past in the Season 4 episode Brothers in Arms, where we learn that Joe served in the Marine Corps, and during his 1968 tour in Vietnam, stepped on a landmine and lost his legs. His sergeant, the immortal Andrew Cord, carried Joe on his back for 15 miles to the nearest field hospital, saving his life. But depressed over the loss of his legs, Dawson contemplated suicide before being approached by a watcher named Ian Bancroft, who proceeds to tell Joe all about immortals, and that his sergeant, Mr. Cord, was also an immortal. This fascinates Dawson and gives him a new lease on life, and he decides to devote himself to the Watcher cause. When an ancient immortal named Callis, with a centuries-long grudge against MacLeod, resurfaces in The Song of the Executioner, we get the start of the big story arc for Season 3. By the end of the episode, Duncan's run-in with Callis sees MacLeod apparently die in front of his mortal girlfriend, Anne. In the next episode, Star-Crossed, MacLeod returns to Paris, and Callis continues his rampage, destroying everyone who's friends with the Highlander. Some manage to escape with their lives, but Hugh Fitzcairn is not so lucky. Next up is Methos, the episode that introduces Peter Wingfield's character, Methos, the world's oldest immortal. If Callis can take his head, he'll have all the power he needs to finally destroy Duncan MacLeod. All of this leads into the two-part season finale called Finale. Yeah, I know, some of these Season 3 titles didn't have a lot of imagination put into them. This story is for all the marbles, and by marbles I mean the lives of all the immortals and all the watchers in the world. Callus has found a CD-ROM containing a Watcher database containing a heap of information about immortals and watchers throughout history. And if the Highlander doesn't give up his head to him...
Otherwise, we're all on CNN.
Certainly not the same threat these days as it was in the 90s when CNN actually reported real news. But he's the bad guy, so he can't win. And the season ends with Callus's defeat and the biggest quickening to date atop the Eiffel Tower.
The Eiffel Tower. The world's biggest lightning rod.
Season 4 changes the opening credits again, introducing a sequence that would stay until the end of the series.
He is Duncan MacLeod, the Highlander. Born in 1592 in the Highlands of Scotland, and he is still alive. He is immortal. For 400 years, he's been a warrior, a lover, a wanderer, constantly facing other immortals in combat to the death. The winner takes his enemy's head, and with it, his power. I am a watcher, part of a secret society of men and women who observe and record, but never interfere. We know the truth about immortals. In the end, there can be only one. May it be Duncan MacLeod, the Highlander.
The show also adds a cold open before the opening credits of every episode that sometimes shows title and credits, but sometimes not, I guess, depending on their moods. The season itself starts off with a bang in the Adrian Paul directed episode Homeland, which sees Duncan MacLeod return to his ancestral home of Glenfinnan, Scotland, where he must defeat the immortal Viking Canwolf. The big mid-season two-parter, Something Wicked and Deliverance, answers the question of what happens to an immortal if they take in too much evil. Does the good man still exist, or is he gone forever, taken over by the darkness? MacLeod finds out when he's forced to take the head of his old friend Jim Koltek, a native Hyoka who has absorbed just a little too much evil over his long lifetime. The dark quickening overcomes MacLeod, and he becomes just as bad, just as evil as those he once fought. This is a terrific two-part story, and it's fun to see Adrian Paul for once, not as the chivalrous Boy Scout, but chewing up the scenery as the baddest of the bad. Another Adrian Paul directed episode, Methuselah's Gift, is a sequel to Season 2's Legacy, in which the lore of the Methuselah Stone is expanded upon to include the myth that the completed crystal has the power to make a mortal man immortal. Amanda also returns sporting her new, short, platinum blonde haircut, which I never liked. Now, throughout Season 4, we see a theme woven through several episodes regarding a systemic rot that's permeated the Watcher organization. This eventually comes to a head in the two-part season finale, Judgment Day and 1 Minute to Midnight. The Watcher Regional Council has decided that Joe Dawson's friendship with MacLeod is the cause of all the organization's trouble over the last couple of years, apportioning, of course, none of the blame to themselves, or Horton's Renegades, of course, and their plan to make everything better is to put Joe through a show trial and execute him afterwards. The execution goes awry with the appearance of MacLeod's immortal friend, Jacob Galati, whose wife was murdered by Horton, by the way, and he sprays the entire execution party with bullets, killing all but Joe in the process. Watcher leader Jack Shapiro then blames MacLeod for the deaths before turning the entire Watcher organization into an armed force with one goal: hunt down and kill both Duncan and Joe, as well as any other immortals they come across. As you may have guessed, things don't go too well for Shapiro, and the Season concludes with one of the most violent endings the series has ever put on film, as well as having Duncan walk away from his friendship with Joe, possibly for good. Thus ends the 4th season of Highlander, one of the best in the entire series, giving us all the action, adventure, and masculinity we could want, with a little romance sprinkled in for good measure. And if y'all like seasons 3 and 4 of Highlander, you're in for, well, something in the show's final 2 seasons. And hey, if you're still here, thank you for sticking around this long. Please remember to hit the like if y'all like the video, share, subscribe, smash that bell for notifications. In part 3 of this deep dive into Highlander the series, we're checking out the final 2 seasons of the show, as well as the 2 TV timeline movies. So, until then, be safe, and I'll see all y'all in the next one. Later.